Welcome to another edition of Tanya Talks. Happy Wednesday to you all out there. Today I have joining us Brandi Saunders, and we are going to have a very enlightening conversation, I'd call it, on what you want is at the center of your truth. Brandi and I have had many, many conversations together, and our conversations seem to center around back to, well, what do you want? And that has really the conversations and the depth of conversations that we've had out of that one question. I just thought it was so important that we talked about it because I wondered how many of you out there are also experiencing that challenge of really understanding what you want for yourself, for your life, and for your life. So welcome, Brandi. Thank you for joining us this evening to talk, let everybody in on our private conversation of what we want. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. And I want to say good morning.
Oh, right. So that's the
perfect morning here for me.
Right. Brandi's in Australia, so it's morning for her there. And it's actually summer for her as we're experiencing our winter. So we are on completely opposite ends of the spectrum, literally. So I'm looking forward to this. So Brandi, I just wanted to really just dive right in and get into it and just ask, I feel that you're such so knowledgeable in the area of getting to the heart of what you want. So share with us, what that looked like for you, how you got to the point of really understanding what you wanted for yourself, for your life.
Absolutely. It's funny because I think that a lot of our conversations start with or end with, well, what do you want? And it doesn't matter what the topic is, what we're talking about, whether it's relationships or career path or parenting, or no matter what it is, it goes back to what you want. And for me personally, my journey started with, well, who am I? Because I found that, especially leaving college in my senior year, so no degree, I'm floundering, I'm aimlessly wandering through life every day, really kind of just acquiescing to what everyone else wants for me, because I had no idea what I wanted, because I didn't know who I was. And I think the catalyst for me was actually moving away from home. So I fell backwards into a job with an airline, went to a job fair with a friend and got a job at an airline and discovered traveling.
And we know you like to travel.
But that was the beginning of my love of travel, because back then it was literally, if there was a seat on an airline and you had the day off, you could go.
Right.
Like on a plane, you could go.
Right.
So I started going back and forth to Florida every month. My great aunt June lived there. And as soon as departure time was approaching, just a gloom fell over me of just depression and not wanting. I felt like a kid, like, no, please don't make me go. I don't want to go back. And I'll never forget, one day we were sitting on the beach. It was maybe an hour to departure. And I'm just like whining, Aunt June, I just don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. And she looked at me and she said, well, you don't have to. And I'm like, huh? What do you mean I don't have to? She's like, you don't have to. You're young, you're single, you don't have children. There's nothing holding you there. Just move. And for whatever reason, that had never occurred to me, never. And it was just a light bulb of, oh, she's right. I can just move. Like,
you make it seem so easy. So this is the other piece that I want you to know about Brandi, is that she makes it seem so easy. Like, well, what do you want?
She made it seem so easy. Like, if you don't want to go, then just don't. And I'm like, because I think that we're so not stuck, but we're very much planted and rooted in where we come from and how we started and our families and where we began. So to up those roots and move somewhere else or do something that no one else that your family, your friends has ever done, it's so foreign.
Right.
You don't know where to begin.
Right.
So I went home, I put in for a transfer, and in the airline industry, everything goes by seniority. So I was low in the totem pole. I was going from a station that had 100 customer service reps to a place that had 11.
So the state you were in had like, they had a full.
Yeah, I was in Baltimore.
Okay.
And so looking at it, it's like, I don't have a snowball's chance of getting into this place because there's only 11 spots. I have no seniority. So I knew I was going to need another job. I went back to Florida and to Fort Lauderdale and secured another job. And after I got that job, I went straight to motor vehicle and got a Florida's driver's license. So
it was just, you made it happen like very quickly.
Yes, it was literally just maybe a couple months, maybe 2 months.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, my dad and his friend picked me up from the airport and was like, oh, so how was your trip? I'm like, it was great. I'm moving to Florida, because I hadn't told anyone.
Right.
And they laughed it up, yucked it up, like, no, you're not moving. So I went into my bag. I grabbed my my freshly minted Florida driver's license. I was like, damn.
Here you go.
I'm moving.
Right.
And they were stunned, like, really? Yes, I'm moving. I told my mom when I got back to the house, and she didn't even really look up from her work, and was like, yeah.
Because she didn't believe you.
She didn't believe me. She did not believe me.
And most people, when you go for what you want, and it seems very out there for people. So it really does feel unbelievable. Like, what do you mean you're moving to Florida? Yeah, sit down, Brandi. What are you talking about? Sit down.
It does. It does.
Get over yourself. It'll be all right. Yeah.
I think pretty much. I think that, well, and you have to remember too, like, once I left college, I wasn't doing anything. I was working 2 jobs, and I was literally just going whichever way the wind blew.
Right.
If someone invited me somewhere, it's just like, yeah, okay, I'll go. And I think, so for me, the move to Florida really had me live on my own and figure out who I was. Okay, I'm not that shy like I thought I was. And I like to do a multitude of things and hang around a lot of different people. And it got me out of my safety zone.
Right. But didn't it feel refreshing that all of a sudden you moved to Florida, and, you know, you kind of take that daring move where you get past all the hurdles of your family and of, you know, yeah. Okay, your mom didn't even look up to see that, you know, well, Mom, I'm serious, right? Because it was unbelievable. Right. And wasn't it refreshing, to know that you could do that, like you could overcome that piece of the puzzle, just being courageous, because I think that there's a lot of bravery in that. And also to get there and be like, wow, yeah, I'm not so shy. It wasn't refreshing to discover that piece of who you are.
It was refreshing, yes. But if I'm going to be honest, it was scary, yes. But I think at a certain point, I was still just listening to someone else. Like, my aunt said, okay, you can move. And I believed her. Like, I trust her. She's my great aunt. We have a good relationship. And I was like, okay, well, if you think, like, I guess back then in my mind, I felt like it was like, well, if you think I can, then I can.
Okay.
But to be able to actually do it and figure out that, okay, wow, this was great. Like, this was the best thing I've ever done in my life. Yes, it gave you a great sense of accomplishment. It was refreshing. It was exciting. Everything was new. And mind you, before then, I knew a little bit about paying my own bills, but not a lot. But that's where you get all of the knowledge when you're doing something that you haven't done before.
Right.
So that's what it was for me. It was, I'm in this new space, and, you know, I can figure it out. I can try it out. I can pretty much do whatever I want. But if you don't know what you even like, then you just kind of revert back to, because I guess I also want to say that initially, I definitely talked to my family and my friends a lot more often, because you're still holding on to that familiar kind of thing.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I actually said, but what was good about that was that the friends that were my true friends, we're still friends to this day. But the people that I was hanging out with that were merely relationships or bonds of proximity, they fell off.
Oh, I like that. Relationships and bonds that are proximity.
They literally fell off. So but it was, again, the best thing that had ever happened to me, because I just got to know myself
Right.
without the pressure and the expectation of
Yes.
have known you all your life and they expect something very, firm, versus being able to explore and meet new people and do something new where you know that, oh, well, I'm this person too. I'm not
Right.
just that. And
And
I
it's
can,
almost a reset to like, so, what I'm hearing is it's a reset almost like you get there and you get that opportunity with no one that you know to be, as you start to discover, I'm not shy. So you get to be that person that you're like, okay, this is actually who I am, not that person over there who I've been suppressed and I acted shy, say, for instance.
yes,
And when you're coming out of your shell in the environment that you grew up in, that you were shy, all of a sudden they were like, what's this? Who's that? Right. So nobody knew you.
exactly. And I didn't know me, which I think is the most important part.
Right.
So when we're talking about what you want, you have to take time to get to know who you are. And for me, that was moving away from home,
Right.
moving away to just quiet all the noise.
Right.
So much noise and everyone else's thoughts of what you should do and who you should be and how you should act, and until you get out there and figure it out for yourself, then you'll never know. You'll always do and become what other people expect of you.
Absolutely. So I
Yeah.
had the opportunity to go, we talked about this, and I had the opportunity to go to doing work all these years and doing personal development work to understand what I didn't like, what I liked, find out who I am, and I'm still on that journey. I remember thinking to myself, I had an opportunity to visit another country in the middle of a pandemic. And in going there, I found a new set of freedom. Like all of a sudden, it was like nobody knows me, and I got to be that truth. I wasn't filtered. There was no one there. And you're right. When you go away, all of a sudden, I don't know what it is in there. Like I wish I could explain it to people, but there's just a nothingness. Like you really feel it's a blank canvas, and you're trying on different things in terms of personality and character and emotions, and feeling different things, and you're getting that chance to explore, and you're talking to people from a different space.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, it was a little daunting. I'll be very transparent that it was daunting. All of a sudden, it was like, wow, I feel like I'm at home. Like you show up in your body and you're at home. And then all of a sudden, I've got to return to what, is supposed to be my home. And you're like, oh, so how do you sustain that? And that was my challenge. Like, how do you now show up with the truth of who you are? It's like you're reintroducing yourself to the world. Like, this is who I am. This is what I want. Right. So that's a challenge. It's a really challenge.
It,
Yeah.
well, I so I think we've talked about this a number of times before. It's like a muscle,
Right.
and you start to exercise something new. At first, it's weak, and you're unsure. And am I doing it right? But the more you do it over and over again, the stronger it gets, the better you get at using it. So I definitely found the challenge of, well, I'll take that back. It wasn't really challenging because it just wasn't something. So, like you can't force your will, from states away. And now that I live in Australia and all of my family is back in the States, I'll equate it to it's like you're a circus performer and you're an acrobat, and your safety net has been taken away, which is extremely scary. But there's so much freedom and joy and excitement and being up there twirling around and doing your thing and doing the things that you most feel at home with and that
Right.
you love.
Right.
So
I live
it's
vicariously through you. I told you with your travel, right?
yes, I said the invitation is open always. Just let me know you're going to be here and I shall pick you up from the airport.
Right. We're working on that. Right. Okay.
So I did want to, because I realized we're not just having a conversation between you and I, for people who don't know where to begin with how to figure out who they actually are. I think that it's worth saying that you have to take some time for yourself.
Right.
I was watching something the other day, and this woman made a statement, and she said, you know, self-care and doing things for yourself is actually an act of rebellion. And I think that that's really true because, especially as women, we grow up being groomed how to be nurturers and taking care of everyone else and everything else. And it almost feels shameful to take care of ourselves. Like it
Right.
seems like self-care is a dirty word.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't, especially since so many women out there are ambitious and we want these lives that have never been available to us before. But now we have technology and the access to so many different things. We want to get out there. We want to create companies and just do everything that has been off the books for us for quite some time.
Absolutely.
But the only way I think you find that you desire is to know who you are.
Yes.
About what you want. So if it's your evening bath time and you take 30 minutes to yourself to soak and just sort of lightly meditate and relax, or if it's meditation, your yoga, your run for the day, or whatever it is, just take the time.
Right.
Get by yourself and get to know yourself so that when it comes down to it, what you want is actually what you want. And it's not what your mom wants for you or your dad or your spouse or partner, what your kids need from you. It's actually what you want.
What you,
because,
yeah.
I know I struggled a lot with the leftovers of what was expected of me. And then 10 years in, it's like, but this doesn't do anything for me.
I like the way you said that. It was, you struggled with the leftovers. Because that's really what it feels like, right? It's like, okay, well, we're the leftovers of the pack.
Absolutely.
As women. And I'm only speaking on behalf of what many women I know have spoken to. That's what we feel like, right?
Yes, absolutely. So just take the time. Self-care and self-understanding is so necessary for us to live our fulfillment.
Right.
Or whatever, you know, it is that you want out of this.
Right.
Then it's so necessary. You can't do it otherwise.
Right, for sure. And I'm just going to bring it down to real talk because Brandi and I, like, you and I have some really, well, like, I'll call you in a spin and I'll be like, okay, Brandi, like, you know, and so patiently you'll listen and finally you'll be like, but what do you want? You know, you get into an argument with somebody or something doesn't work, like in just everyday life, or you're wrestling with a decision. And I'm very famous when I'm going through my own sorting process between journaling and having to talk it out. And I talk it out in 5,000 different ways. And, you know, and you listen very patiently as I go through my 5,000 different analogies. And then you're like, are you done? And I'm like, yeah, well, Dan, what do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. And I like your rebuttal is always, but you do. And I'm like, no, I don't. And you'll say to me, but you just said it. And I'm like, what did I say? But you know who you are. You know, who are you? And I'll say it back. So for anybody listening, like, I like the way you go through that process of, well, what do you want? Well, I don't know. No, you do know what you want, right? So all of a sudden, I've used that with individuals, my own children. I'm like, well, what do you want? And it really stops a person when you say to somebody, but you do know what you want. Actually, you do know who you are, you know, and all of a sudden you're like, I do. And it really anchors you into being centered and, yeah, this is really what I want. And it's like a fresh breath of fresh air because all of a sudden, all that weight, those 5,000 different directions fall off. And it's like that lady said to you in the beginning, it is that easy.
Yes, it is. But isn't it weird that when someone says, but you do know what you want, it's like, well, why would I know that? Because we never think about, like, it doesn't even occur to us, well, what do we actually want? I feel like a lot of times we're on just autopilot
Right.
of we're always doing, always busy. I think that one thing that COVID has been extremely good for is slowing down
Mm-hmm.
and having more opportunity and more time to engage with the people that we care for and that we
Right.
love, that we should spend the most of our day with, but we usually don't. We
Right.
spend it with people that we work with or people that we have to engage with to make money. But the COVID has actually taken a lot of our distraction away.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what it did was one day I actually sat and watched Social Dilemma. Did you watch? Have you seen that
I
documentary?
haven't. I was told not to watch it because I'm an extremist, right? So if I watch it, I will go. It's not healthy for me to watch that.
So it was healthy for me to watch because I'm not really a huge social media person, but I did spend a healthy amount of time on there, just scrolling, watching, seeing new things, whatever. And after I watched it, I'm like, I need a fast from social media. So I took like a week off, and I found that in that week, it was like my mind was so quiet, and that I could actually concentrate on me.
Right.
I read more books than I had in probably months and months because I had the extra time. So
Right.
it's like time is out there for you to do anything that you like. We always make time for what we actually want to do.
I say that all the time to
Yeah,
people. Right.
we
You
do.
know, yes, I really do. And I say this all the time that, when you call somebody, for instance, and I'm digressing a little here, but when you call somebody, for instance, and they don't return your call or they return your call, and I said, if I left a message saying that I have $1 million to give you, you'd call me back 3 minutes later.
Absolutely.
So, but it's interesting because I do agree. I'm going to let everybody out there know that because of the pandemic, this is how this whole Tanya Talks came about. So it did give me a chance to slow down. You are correct, where it was all of a sudden, what do you want? So it gave an opportunity for this to come to life through that. And all of a sudden it was like, there's an accountability piece to it too, I think, in what you want as well. It's owning what you want and being accountable for it, I feel, as well. So
So I just also wanted to say but see how you had extra time to devote to yourself and something new was born out of that.
yes.
I do want to say I'm so happy that you have this platform and I've watched all of your talks, and everyone has something interesting and a different, like, I love conversing with people because you can always get a little, what I like to call a nugget of
Yes.
just wisdom or just a little something from every single person. We all have a different point of view. We're all doing something different, and we can always learn something from everyone,
Absolutely.
which is great. But
Yeah.
yeah, we were talking about the accountability piece in it. I feel like a lot of times, so we're talking about what you want, which I think a lot of people hear the law of attraction. And I feel like one thing that is sort of missing from that is, yes, you can sit and you can visualize and you can meditate on and you can feel the feelings of having those things. But if you don't have any action and you don't hold yourself accountable to the things that you want in your life, then they're just going to be dreams.
Right, right. And it's nice to have somebody. So I feel very blessed and fortunate because you're right. I do like this platform. I started because I like to talk. I'm curious about human beings, those little nuggets. I'd like to find out. And you've been a very, very big cheerleader in my life. So thank you very much. And yeah, you always, no matter which way I spin it, no matter how I try to talk myself out of it, you always like, well, what do you want? Well, you know what you want. And she's so calm about it. You were absolutely very calm about it, right? And the accountability piece, what I like about it is you always hold me accountable for my actions. You're like, okay, well, Tanya, what are you going to do next? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I going to do next? And you're like, well, you just figured out what you wanted. Well, what are you going to do next? And I said, well, I don't know. Isn't that good enough? And you're like, well, if you want what you want, you're going to have to do something about it. And I like the way that you challenge me to say, and you actually know you have to do about that.
Right. Well, and I think that's merely because I believe that we have all of the answers, like in our spirit, in our soul, and in our guts. Like that's where listen to your gut comes from, because
Right.
we have all of the answers.
Right.
And I think that we constantly look outside to people. So we always ask for sort of you need, what is the word, Tanya? Oh my gosh.
Let me think. Let me think. Good. Let me pull it out of my Rolodex.
Right.
Validation.
But yes, that's the word I was looking for. You ask everybody their opinion.
Yes.
And because you're looking for validation that what you already know inside has credence. And so the opinion of someone else is really unnecessary because you already know the right answer. I feel like we just want somebody to say, yes, what you're thinking is the right way, or the truth, or you should do it. And we already have the answers. And I think that we could all use an exercise in learning how to listen to the God in us and the spirit in us, because that it's already there.
Right. And I like the way you always bring it back to that central point is
it's in the center of your truth, which is what's inside of us.
Yes. And then it when you get there, it's almost like that. I think the harder part is the fear, getting over the fear of what the action is next after the accountability. Well, within the accountability, it's like, can I really do this? Can I really do this? And I always say to people, go get a cheerleader in your life, because you really are going to need that cheerleader to push you along, right? So,
right. But I think that also comes from, because we're always thinking about, well, what if it doesn't work out? So maybe we should train ourselves to think, but what if it does?
Does work out,
like,
right?
This is like, if this is successful, what if it does work out? What if I get everything that I want? But that can be a scary place to live in as well, because I think that people create these huge dreams thinking that they will never come true. And then when you get close to it, the fear of accomplishing something so big and then you having to hold that up and be accountable to that is extremely scary. And it kind of puts us back down into what we have thought to be our place.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And when you say brought down to being our place, but then we end up being miserable. And I don't like miserable. So
no.
I don't like to do miserable. When I think about that, it's funny because when I was going through my own transformation in the whole "what do you want" piece of it, I was leading the pack in talking myself, what if everything went wrong? Like, I think I could write books on what would go wrong with whatever I wanted. And as I started to understand that, words are powerful, etc., and I was bringing that into my existence, I did start to exercise, what if it went right? And I actually started to create boundaries around that with what do I want, because it was like, okay, well, if somebody came into my atmosphere and started to talk about what would go wrong, I would shut them down. So I actually took responsibility for what I wanted and making sure that everything around me matched what I wanted. I wanted people to support that of which I wanted. So
was that uncomfortable for you?
Extremely uncomfortable, because I didn't realize how many people in society, just as human nature, we tend to focus on the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I found it very challenging to be around individual. And then you want to keep this. That's why people end up keeping it a secret and not sharing it with anybody, because you're guarding this thing that you want. And then, I'll be honest, there were some lonely moments in there, because it's like, wow, this is supposed to be exciting, but you really have no one to share it with. So yes, that was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
However, when I found that I rebutted and really took that leap of faith and started to say, well, guys, why don't we start talking about what will go right? And all of a sudden their brains would be like, yeah, I never kind of thought about that. So it's important to know what you want, but you also have to be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Defend it, not even defend it, because I'm not into defending either, but just be able to to make sure that the energy that's being projected to what you want um, is what you want, healthy, vibrant. It's going to happen. Yes, like the cheerleader type, ray, 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 rah, rah, rah.
Sure.
um,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say that also what I found in going for what I wanted, as I started to find out who I was and who I am, it was challenging as well because I started to lose the identity of who I was as I was moving into who I am, which matched what I wanted.
How did you find out who you were?
Through trial and error. For me, it was mostly it was you. It was mostly really understanding what I didn't want, like what I. For me, my life had a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns, and mine was a little different, where it didn't seem that easy. It seemed very hard. Where you know it on the inside, but it was kind of like you know what you don't want.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, what do I want through that? And then the more I started to understand what I wanted, it was almost like this opposition coming my way. That's what it felt like. This opposition and this suppression, because it was like the more you started to move into the direction of what you wanted, even if you said nothing to anybody, but you started to, your actions, you were just silent about it, moved about. As you were moving about, there was always, at least in my life, there was always that person that showed up and was like, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And well, you're not XYZ or whatever the case was. So all of a sudden it was like trying to push me back into that space of and that identity. And it was like fighting through that was very, very
Very,
uncomfortable.
yeah, I get it. I relate to that as well. So I guess I want to ask the question, so how do we, once we figure out who we are, then how do we become comfortable in standing in this discovery, this new discovery?
That's a good question. So this is real talk, guys, because this is really what we talk like behind the scenes. How do we do that? That is I'm trying to think really quickly on live
So,
TV. What that looks like for
well,
me.
no, you know what? It makes me think of one thing I know I've struggled with a lot is giving the same compassion to myself that I reserve for others.
Mm,
And the
you
one of
called
the
it grace.
yes, yes.
You
When we
called it grace. We talked about this.
said
You called
what I want to do is leave space for grace, is what I said.
yes.
And because when you start learning new things and discovering new things about yourself, I know for me, I always get gung ho and it's like, yes, I'm going to do XYZ by this time date. And this is how everything is going to change. And along the way, like you discovered with the challenges, having other people around and putting doubt in your head, and we don't account for any of that. We don't
Right.
account for life, changes or COVID or anything, any accidents, or even if we just fall short because we're only human.
Right. Right.
And I did say that what I have been trying to implement in my life now is just leaving space for grace.
For grace.
Leaving space for the fact that my best is not going to look the same every day.
Right.
Some days my best is going to look like me giving 120% and going on full engines for 10 hours a day and accomplishing everything I set out for that day. And sometimes my best is going to look like managing to get out of bed and read a book instead of doing, whatever it is my goal is for that day, just to keep my mental sanity.
Right.
So
right.
I think that being able to be compassionate to ourselves and loving on ourselves just like we would with other people, it helps us to get to the place of where we want in a more gentle, harmonious way, versus trying to knock your square edges
yourself. Well, it's like, because all of a sudden you're going for what you want. Let's call a spade a spade. You're going for what you want. There's a lot of moving parts to it. You're shifting from leaving that old identity behind, moving into a new identity. You've got to get comfortable with having what you want, that acceptance piece, and being able to live with this new thing. And along the way, you're going to have some setbacks, and you're going to want to go back into your comfort zone. And as human beings, it's so easy for us to beat ourselves up in the process of it. Like, oh my gosh, we're failing. Oh, we're never going to have, oh, I don't deserve to have what I want. Maybe this is a sign from the universe. It's not a sign from the universe. You're just going through a change. That's
right.
it.
No, just human.
Right. So give yourself that grace. So I like that. Give yourself some grace, because you will have setbacks. It's like the tree. It's like the tree. You've looked at the tree bent this way for so long, and you're actually getting it to go straight. And when a storm comes, it tries to go back to where it's comfortable, where with the way in which it grew. And right. Like you said, those muscles, it's got to come back again. So it really is leaving room for grace, so that it just be patient. Just be patient. You'll get there. And I think it's just staying true to who you are. We've practiced for so long being who we're not, that it's going to take time to get comfortable being who we are and getting what we want. There's people, I'm just going to use a material example. You want a car, a fancy car, but you're so used to having a beaten up car. Well, it's actually a mindset to see yourself in that brand new car. Like, do I deserve it? Like, there's so much in that. And the closer you get to having that new car, something happens. And then you're like, well, no, maybe I don't deserve that. And that's when you have the cheerleader in your car saying, no, honey, there's nothing back there for you. Like, that's not what you want. We've decided that already. Remember, that's not where your truth is. Your truth is over here in your shiny, fancy new car, or a relationship, for instance, no, you're not back there. You're over here. So it's really, saving room for grace is important. One of the things that I really enjoy with the whole what do you want and who you are is, I did video work. And what that was I did video work.
Okay, video work. Oh, yes, yes.
Right. And
I did a similar thing.
Right. You did mirror work.
Yes.
And, and it was like looking in the mirror and saying, who are you, or what do you want? Or a situation comes, and in that moment that situation comes up, whatever it is, because every day we're presented with something, good, bad, indifferent, we're presented with something. And that opportunity to go in front of the mirror and look at yourself and just say, okay, and confront yourself in that moment reveals a lot. Mine was through video work.
Yeah. What I found so interesting is, again, I had read or seen this on something, and it was one of those small nuggets that I took with me. And I think the lasting question that I was left with was, when was the last time you looked yourself in the mirror and said, I love you? Like, when was the last time you said, I love you to yourself? And I'm like, that's weird. Who does that? But I was moved to actually stand in front of the mirror. And what I will say is, standing in front of the mirror, looking into your own eyes, they say that, the eyes are the soul to your spirit. Right. And when you look into your own eyes, though, there's something there. There's some swirling aliveness that you don't see when you're looking at them in the mirror to put on your makeup, because you're not looking in your eyes. You're literally looking at your face and the rest of you, or checking your clothing or doing your hair or whatever. But when you look in your eyes, something some sort of connection, something magical actually happens where you connect right to your spirit, to
The truth.
the core of you.
Yeah.
And so I started really slow, where it was, because it was weird, because it made you feel really uncomfortable. But I started every day looking in my eyes, just saying, I love you.
Right.
And that turned into like actual conversations of like, really, what do you want? What do you want out of the situation? What is happening with you? What is it that you need? What can I give you that's going to make, whatever this turmoil is, okay? And it was so helpful, because that, I think, was one of the key moments when I realized that I do have all the answers. I don't need anybody else's opinion. I got this. I can do this. Because I started going to myself for pep talks and for well, what do I do next? And where it's like, the answer. And I will say that it's never led me in the wrong direction. It made me go a direction that I don't want to go at the time, that I don't feel prepared for.
Right.
But it always leads me to exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Absolutely. Somebody's writing in here saying that she does mirror work. Teresa, if you're out there, we're hearing you, that she does mirror work. So, and it's true. The eyes are the window to the soul, and it will always lead you to your truth. It reminds me of the saying, and I say it all the time, I've said it on previous talks, that for me, it's what I wrote in my bio, was the starting point for me, was the spiritual foundation my father gave me, which was seek ye the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and all that will be followed. Everything else will follow. And what that meant for me was, I've given you a job on this earth to find yourself, know yourself, study yourself, because everything you have is within you. And the truth will always, when you know yourself, that is your truth, and it will never fail you. It will always cause you to live at your highest, best self, whether in the spiritual world, the emotional world, mental world, in the physical world. It doesn't matter. Like, it's all within you. So you're right. It's never let you down, right? Yeah. So, and that was me with the video work. It was like, I'd be crying in the video.
Oh my goodness, Tanya. Crying. Like, sometimes I would just be, I'm bawling, and it's like, why? I didn't even know what, I started apologizing to myself. Like, because what I also found out too, is as I've matured in my journey, that we don't give ourselves enough compassion. And we look so hard on ourselves for the mistakes that we made. But we're supposed to make mistakes. If you're not failing at something, you're not trying at something.
Right.
And I felt like I needed to apologize to myself, because I did the best I could in that moment with the knowledge that I had. And I'm sorry I hurt you. Like, I felt like I needed to be I had to hold myself accountable to say, I'm sorry, but I did the best I could in that moment with the knowledge that I had, and we're better now. Like, we're not.
It's also forgiving, right? Like, I'm sure to your soul. And so let's talk energy for a second. Yeah, okay. Like, can I bring, because you brought up a good point, and then all of a sudden you cry, you're giving yourself compassion. So energetically, you're actually opening yourself up to be able to have what you want.
Yes.
It's
space for it too.
Right.
You're putting all that clutter, and the damaged parts, and it's making space for the things that you actually do want to come into your life. And I always say more harmoniously, because things can come, but if they come in a storm of, this large proportion, that it can just rip us apart. So I like for things to come in a harmonious, just beautiful way, that it's like, yes, it's like cozy slippers. I can just slide right into it.
Yes. We do say that a lot, like the most harmonious and loving way that it can come into our lives. I really touch upon the whole grace and compassion, because obviously it's dear to me, because I've had so many layers to go through in my own personal life. Somebody's writing in here. I just want to interject here. I think we're always made to feel that failure was bad, but if you never failed, that means you never tried. If we embrace our failures as opportunities, we will never stop trying.
Yeah.
And I think that that's powerful. We'll never stop trying. Yeah. So that's from Effie that has shared that with us. So thank you, Effie, for sharing that with us. But yes, so it's like what you want. I think that what people, what it's important to understand when you know who you are, there's something that has to clear. So from an energetic perspective, there is some clearing that has to happen, that has to be able to invite it into your life. And I like when we talk like that, because you'll say to me, Tanya, well, what do you have to clear out of your life in order to get what you want? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Yes, you do know. And I'm like, no, I don't. And I'm like, okay. And then you go to the video, and that, for me, I'm video work, and my video work looks like, I'm talking to myself as if I'm my friend talking to me, because I know the real answers within me that, and I'm like, okay, but I want that. And I'm crying, but I can't, and I've got all the excuses to why. And then I play the video back and I'm like, who the hell is this? Like, who am I looking at? And then I go back to the video and I'm like, okay, Tanya, so if you didn't have all that crying and sobbing, victim, pity me, whatever, who would you be? And then I become that person that I feel on the inside. And then all of a sudden you play back and you're like, that's who I am. And this is what I want. And you know what? And all of a sudden when you understand why, and then I do ask the question, why? Well, why do you want it? And when I can actually answer and make that connection to why I want it, everything else disappears, and it usually shows up in my life because I've come to peace with it. But I don't know why my process, everybody's process is going to be different. I don't know why I have to cry before that process to get to.
But that's what makes it so good too, is that there's so many different ways that you can get to it, but it all starts with you.
Right.
And it's okay to get to it in a different way.
Right.
It's okay for you to have to cry and for me to do something completely different, but we still get to the same place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like that feeling of just, I think the why is another big piece. I think they're all good pieces. I think they're all just pieces of it to bring it all together. The why, it's just something about, there's magic in the why. Like, why do you want this? Oh, and when you can actually, it connects the neurons and it connects all the connectors, and it adds charge to it in your body. And then it sends that feeling to your heart, and it just radiates when you really understand the why, the reasoning, the root of to why. And it gives a sense of peace that almost like when you answer the why to why you want what you want, why, the truth of that why, when you look into your soul and you say, this is why Brandi wants this, all of a sudden it's done. It's already shown up in your life, whatever that is.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know why. I wish I could explain it to individuals, but you can't. It's just a feeling. It's accomplished. It's like it's completed.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. I think that one thing that was extremely difficult for me and that I used to apologize for all the time was after I had received things that I wanted, but they were different from what other people wanted. And I always got you have extra money, you don't have the kids. And I could physically feel myself shrinking down, yeah, look, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry I don't have kids.
What do you mean? Are you not paying for my children's college tuition?
Exactly. Exactly. And I would actually it just felt so uncomfortable with me. And once I saw a little blurb of something that said, it's okay to live a life that other people do not understand. Yes. And I used to say that to myself every single day, it was a mantra, it's okay to live a life that other people do not understand. And once that sunk into my spirit, I feel like that almost became my why.
Yes.
Because I want to live the life that I want to live, that feeds my spirit, that feeds my soul, that makes me the best person that I want to be. It really doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. It's this is mine, this is me. And once that sunk in, I don't feel the need to apologize anymore. It's like, hey, Tanya, next week, do you want to go on a girls trip? And if you're like, well, you don't have kids. I have kids. I got to find a sitter. I got to make sure that they're okay. And and I'm just like, okay.
I'm moving on.
Again, it's like that muscle. The more you exercise it, the more you get comfortable in doing so. And then this becomes almost like a second nature of, yes, this is me. This is good.
And it's interesting because we contradict ourselves universally. That is, where we want something and we've done all this work to be at peace with it. But then at the tail end of it, when we get what we want, you're right, we're apologizing. And the universe goes, well, why are you apologizing for this? Isn't this what you wanted? Like, why are you acting like you did something wrong? Should I take it away from you then, since you feel like you did something wrong? And that was my connection, was like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not bad. It just, what? Right. Because it was all of a sudden you feel bad, right? Like, did I do something wrong? It's a bad feeling. And it's like, yeah, why am I apologizing? For what? Like, we all have different desires, different wants, different needs. And this was mine. Right. Yeah. So I like that piece where people work to stop apologizing for having what they want in their life. You see it a lot out there. People judge it and they criticize it and they condemn it, and you hear people making comments behind other people's backs about it. Like, that's a big one. And I like people in my camp that we're too busy celebrating individual success and being able to be open to receiving what we want. Like, there's such a victory in that, where you don't feel in bondage. You feel a sense of personal accomplishments. And it's not to me, the material is just a vehicle for what you allowed your soul to receive and to accept. So it's not even about the material. It's just like, yes, it happened. Right? I'm capable.
It feels so good, right?
It does.
So good to have an idea, to work hard, to make yourself accountable, and then to actually receive it. It feels amazing.
Yes, unapologetically.
It feels better than anything out there, I think.
Yes.
That sense of accomplishment. You've reached the mountaintop. You're surrounded by the fresh air. Actually, I want to say that there was one time I actually did climb a small mountain. There's a mountain here. I don't know why it came up just now. And I love like adventure stuff. So I've gone skydiving and zip lining, and like, I love it. That's my jam. And this mount here is about the height of the Eiffel Tower. So it's 300 meters or something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure. And on the way up this, it's like increasingly, it inclines really, really sharply at certain points. And all of a sudden, like, we're midway up there and the breeze is like blowing, and down the side of this mountain, it's like the rocks are starting to like fall down as you step on stuff. And the guide that we were with kept saying, keep your long leg on the outside. And I'm like, what does that mean? My legs.
Your long leg? Your like leg. So how do you decipher? Okay.
I don't know what he was talking about. So we're climbing, and I was all of a sudden sheer terror, fear, out of my mind. Like, all I could envision, I kept thinking about the fact that I'm going to slip and roll down the side of this mountain. Crazy. But all I wanted to do was get to the top so you can take the cool pictures and look up, down. I was scared to death. Tanya, I had to actually get on my hands and knees and like climb, because standing up was too tall for me. It was too tall. I couldn't do it. So I had to climb on my hands and knees up to the part where you could just climb the last bit and get onto the mountain. I'm not afraid of heights. Like, I've never been afraid of heights. So it was just weird. But I also relate that to when you're going through this process, sometimes you got to get down low and dirty to just make it through.
Right.
Moving forward. Like, because once we got to the top of this mountain, the breeze was like no other breeze you've ever felt down, on the regular ground. The topography, the landscape, it was just so beautiful. All of the reds and oranges and yellows of the desert. I live in the middle of the outback, so it's just tons of desert. The sky
That's why I
was
haven't made it there, because of the spiders and the snakes and the. Okay.
the snakes will not bother you.
Yes. Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that it's not going to always be pretty.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
I think we can just say it's okay
Mm-hmm.
for ourselves some more. And again, back to that compassion, then we can make it. We can get to whatever it is we want. And also leave space for grace, because sometimes what we want changes too.
Right.
And it's okay to change direction and do something else.
That's another thing. You're on your way to what you want, and then you realize you really don't want it. Right? You're like, maybe I didn't want that after all. Because a lot of times the work that goes into it wasn't necessarily what we cut out for, because it does take work to go for what you sometimes. And I'm not saying like there's moments in life where we want something and it just appears, but those things that
wait. When is that?
When's what? And then it disappears?
When is it that you just want something and it disappears? You have a genie. You have a genie.
Well, I told you I don't. I just let the cat out the bag now. Like I told you, I don't talk about the genie very often, but yes, I have the genie. Well, to me, what you want just feels like really just you uncovering your value and worth and your acceptance to what you believe. I think there's an acceptance level, like, I talk about the risk tolerance level, the level of which, whatever your thermostat is of what you're really capable of receiving in this world. I think those are the things that we have to work through, is really getting rid of the thermostat so that we can start living the possibilities of the truth of our soul. When we go into that mirror, we look in our eyes and we're like, okay, what do we want? Okay, well, what's stopping us? And let those things surface and let the healing happen, let the grace happen, let all those things come through that through that moment and through that process. And then just allowing it to show up, being accountable, wanting something and moving in a different direction than what you want obviously isn't going to work. So really understanding that you have to be accountable along the way and have personal integrity along the way in order to go after what you want in a lot of areas of your life.
And I think that the one last thing that I want to say is I'm not sure what time it is, but I can imagine we're getting closer to the end.
Yes, I just looked at the time and we could be on for on this topic.
Okay. So the last thing I want to say is that I was listening to a song recently. I think it's by Jill Scott, and in one of the verses she says, "We're almost there now, just a million more steps to go." And I think that if we kind of look at our journey as that, you are almost there.
Yes.
But you still have a million
more
steps to go.
Thank you.
But if you look, so for me, that brings such it puts me in a space of more peacefulness, because I know that it's never ending. And I think that sometimes we can disappoint ourselves when we think that the surface is right here and you only have enough breath to get here. So you're like inching, and then when you get there and you find out that it's been raised to here, then it lets all of the air out of your lungs and you can't move forward. And now you're in this pit of despair.
Right.
Understand that it is an ongoing journey.
Right.
And we are almost there, because not where we were. We are continually, it's
evolving.
Aggregation of marginal gains, where we want that 45% change right off the breaks, but it's a huge mountain and you can't get over that. And we put ourselves in the space that it's so hard, it's so difficult, we're dragging ourselves on. But if we just look at it as you just need a 1% change or a 0.5% change every day, then you'll reach that 45% and it'll be done.
There you go.
It was no sweat, because everybody can either, we can imagine or we can manage a 0.5% change every day.
It's true. When you break it down psychologically, just a 0.5% or a percentage, it doesn't seem so daunting. So we do have to go. We can be on this topic forever because we can go into, right, because it's just such a topic that's dear to us in terms of we haven't even brought in the energy aspect of it and all the rest of that, which we're going to say for another day. But
what are we leaving people with? So how do you get to what you want through the center of your truth?
I'm going to, how do you, well, because all of a sudden I was like, blah. How do you get to center your truth? I really think it comes down to knowing. I think everything starts with knowing who you are. That's for me. I think that it's the foundation for anything, whether it's creating boundaries, whether it's, self-talk, anything. It is the foundation, is knowing who you are. And then from there, it spills out into the work from there. So what you want is the center of a truth is knowing who you are.
Yes.
And how do you know? And taking what? Sorry?
Taking accountability.
Yes. Taking accountability for that.
What you want.
Absolutely.
And
then
acceptance.
Yes.
Acceptance, yeah.
Understanding why.
Yes. Very good.
So all those little
pleasure. It has really been, this is not in my wheelhouse. I don't like to be in front of the camera. I still like to be behind the camera. So was crazy nervous, but I'm glad that we did it anyway.
Well, thank you for trusting me and taking this big step, because I'm like, we need to be having this conversation with people because we have such powerful conversations, and we come off the phone with each other and we feel like we can conquer the world and take everything on and nobody can mess with us, and because we know who we are. We just figured something out. So I love it. It's energetic. It's flavorful. You're just such a blessing in my life. So thank you very much for stepping out of the box.
You are one of the, I could not have imagined that I would gain such a good friend and a family member through just meeting twice. It's been awesome. So
yes,
hopefully we can do this again. I enjoyed it and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
So grateful that you have taken this step out into it.
Thank you. Thank you. So, and we will talk soon.
Okay.
All right, guys. Good night. Thank you, Brandi, for being on Tanya Talks. And thank you all for joining us live here on Tanya Talks. We ran a little bit over today, but you know what? This is real talk, real issues, and this is real life. So this is what we wanted to bring you tonight. All right. Have a good one. Join us on Friday where we will be talking with some parents raising children in the competitive arena. We look forward to that as well. So join us Friday morning at 9:30. Until then, guys, be well, be safe, and let's get on the journey of finding out who you are. If you are needing help in getting to that place, visit TanyaRicketts.com and find out how you can get that support. Good night, everyone. Good night, Brandi.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Take care.